Hi, I'm Shiv Guglani, and today we have a very special episode of the Raise Line podcast. I'm actually here on set with Dr. Abebe Bekele, who's the Dean of the University of Global Health Equity here in beautiful Butaro, Rwanda, which you can see behind us. Now, we at Osmosis have been working with UGHE for about 6 years, ever since we met Partners in Health in Boston at the AAMC conference. Dr. Bekele has a very impressive background. He's a cardiac and thoracic surgeon, and he was the dean of Addis Ababa's medical school before becoming the dean here at UGHE. I spent the last 24 hours touring the campus, meeting with students and faculty, and being really impressed with the infrastructure and the quality of education that he and his team have set up here at UGHE, which I think is a model for global health and many medical schools, not just here in Rwanda, but in Africa and worldwide. He's a very impressive background. We'll include that in the show notes after this. But for now, I just wanted to welcome you, Dr. Bekele, and thank you for taking the time to meet with me.
Thank you. Thank you, Shiv. Thank you for having me.
So we always like to start these podcasts with kind of in your own words. Tell us more about yourself, what got you interested in a career in medicine and then surgery.
Well, career in medicine. I think I followed the footsteps of my brother and sister. We are three in the family. I'm the youngest, and my sister went to medical school, my brother went to medical school, so I thought I should go to medical school. That's how it happened. Then midway in my medical school, when I started my junior clerkship in surgery, I went to medical school in Gondar, at the Gondar Medical College in Ethiopia, and three young surgeons joined the faculty. Just out of their residency became a faculty. They were really good teachers. So I can say what brought me to surgery was role modeling, very good role modeling. The three young surgeons shaped my career, shaped me. After I graduated from medical school, I was retained by the same university as a lecturer for about 2.5 years. Then went to residency in general surgery at Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia. After 4.5 years of residency, I was again retained by that university as an assistant professor. Started my cardiothoracic fellowship, then became a cardiac surgeon around 2012. It's been 11 years now since I became a surgeon. So I think role modeling played a huge role in my being a surgeon.
Definitely. And already I mentioned to you, I spoke with a number of your students yesterday, and several of them are interested in careers in surgery. One specifically citing, the 11-hour surgeries you've done in cardiac thoracic surgery as well. So role modeling, I think, is one of the core reasons people go to medical school versus just learning online. Now, one thing that's impressed me in our conversations is you've also invested a lot, not just in being a surgeon and an academic leader, but also in improving your own educational skills, simulation-based training, flipped classroom. Can you tell us a bit about what got you interested in a career in education?
Yeah. When I took the job as a young general practitioner, as a lecturer in Gondar, I immediately became a teacher to medical students, to health officers. Then I realized that I enjoy teaching. I love teaching. I spent some extra time spending time with the medical students, the other health profession students. I also started to prepare for my residency exams. Then apparently I thought I was a good student. The students started appreciating it, giving me some awards, certificates. That encouraged me a lot. Same thing happened in Addis Ababa University. I used to teach a lot in undergrad and postgrad, general surgery, undergrad medical students. I helped examine as an external examiner in several medical schools in the country. By then, when I finished residency, simulation-based education was just coming in Africa. That was introduced to my medical school, but it was not yet structured. So I thought someone has to probably learn this and set up a good sim lab in Addis. So I started my fellowship in simulation-based surgical education at the University of Washington. It took a year to complete, several months in Seattle. I think I became a well-qualified simulation-based educator in surgery. That helped me set up a very good skills lab in Ethiopia, developed some quite good curricula. And the skills lab I helped set up became the seed for the establishment of several sim labs in the country. Then one day I received a phone call from the president of the university. I was told I am the associate dean of the School of Medicine. I said, what's an associate dean? Apparently it means dean of undergraduate students. We had about 3,000 medical students then. So I said, okay, but how did you select me? Oh, the students preferred you. Apparently you are a good teacher, they preferred you to be the dean. I said, okay. Went to the office. 3 months later, I said, President, I'm leaving. I'm resigning. He asked why. But I don't know what I'm doing. The office, the secretariat knows better than I do. Even without a dean, it's an old medical school. It has systems. It goes without the dean. It can function without me. Then he kind of said, all of us went into leadership this way. It's better if you think of professional development, personal development, and grow on the job. That's why I started the FAMER Fellowship in Philadelphia, the Medical Education Fellowship, about 2.5 years. Really shaped my career in academic leadership, teaching, assessment, curriculum, monitoring and evaluation, program evaluation, and innovation. After I finished my fellowship, I think I did some good stuff in Addis. I served as the Dean and Associate Dean for about 5 years, I think. The CEO position of the Tukur Ambassa Hospital was also added. Then I was the Dean and the CEO of the hospital. Quite a heavy undertaking, but managed to do some good work. I retired from that position in 2016, end of 2016, joined UGHE in 2018. I can say the work I'm doing here is probably shaped by what I did in Addis and the different CPD programs I took, the personal development programs, the education I did in simulation and medical education.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, I've again toured the campus over the last day and seen how intentional the curricular setup you have is and who you've hired, obviously taking deep interest in not just being a researcher or a clinician, but also being an educator. You have a great faculty, it seems. So tell us about UGHE, like the founding story, how it's related to Partners in Health, and what the last several years have been like.
UGHE is 8 years young, set up in 2015. We are fully owned by Partners in Health. Partners in Health have 2 institutions in Rwanda. The health delivery arm, known as Inshuti Mubuzima, and the academic arm, the UGHE. So we are 2 sisters of the same, belong to the same organization. We are in our 8th year since formation now. We have a School of Medicine, the Institute of Global Health Equity, the Institute of Global Health Equity Research, Center for One Health, Center for Gender Equity, the Center for Equity in Global Surgery, our Educational Development Center. We have a Center for Nursing Midwifery, and several others. So we formed since 2018. The School of Medicine at the moment has 108 students. 70% of them are women by policy. We recruit more women than men. We started recruiting from just Rwanda, the first 2 cohorts. Last year we expanded it to Uganda, Tanzania, and Burundi. This year we'll also recruit from the PIH African countries, Sierra Leone, Malawi, Lesotho, and Liberia. We started with just 30 students, and the plan is to increase this 6 every year until we reach at a summit of 60. So hopefully by 2028, we're going to have 300 students, medical students in the campus, 60 in each cohort. Our senior students have now entered their senior clerkship here. They are doing their attachments in ENT, radiology, dentistry. The curriculum is set up in 4 phases. The first one is what we call the liberal arts in humanities, social sciences, social medicine, gender, social justice. The students spend about 7 to 8 months doing these modules. We believe strong foundation in liberal arts and humanities, social sciences is pillar to the formation of tomorrow's doctors. Then they start their basic medical sciences years. We follow an integrated curriculum. We don't teach anatomy, we don't teach physiology, but we teach system-based integrated modules. The current students are doing their GIT and nutrition module. It's followed by respiratory system, the cardiovascular, the vascular system. After these 2 years, they go to their clinical clerkship years. It's 1 year of junior clerkship, 1.5 years of senior clerkship. Then they go for their government mandated 1 year internship here in Rwanda. And then they come back to come and do the Masters of Science in Global Health Delivery program. So by the time the students finish their program with us, they will leave with their MD, which is called MBBS in Rwanda, and MGHD, a dual degree program. That's the system we have tried to create here.
And it's very unique. We talked about this yesterday, where I think there are a lot of schools that offer the option to do an MBA, an MHA, another master's, PhD. But here, every medical student who graduates also gets this master's with one of 4 tracks, I believe. As you said, one is maybe surgical equity, global surgical equity. So hopefully your vision, it seems, is to train not just providers, but providers who become leaders and promote global health. Is that right? And then they go back to the countries where you recruited them from and improve healthcare capacity there?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Our vision is to produce healthcare providers who are not just providers, but also leaders and change makers. The pillar to this is training. That's how in 2015 we started the MGHD program. At the moment, the MGHD has 3 tracks in health management, One Health, and sexual reproductive health. This year, the global surgery track will start, and next year, the community health track will start. So by the time our medical students are ready for the MGHD program, they will have 5 tracks to choose from. It's a good quality medical school, good quality MGHD. So it's bound to be expensive. Setting it up, running it is expensive. However, in Africa, expensive education will be reserved for those who can only pay. The majority, overwhelming majority, will not be able to afford it. Our decision, therefore, is to give them scholarships. As far as they pass the very stringent selection criteria we have. Our selection rate is about 3 to 4% at the moment.
Wow.
Anyone who passes through this stringent selection criteria can join us. However, nothing in life is free. They have to pay this forward. They have to agree with their own Ministry of Health to serve the nation wherever they are assigned, at least for 5 to 6 years, at least. So we expect agreements with the Ministries of Health of these countries. The students should agree with us to make sure they finish the program, the 2 degrees, and they should sign a contract with their own government. The government should also commit to employ them as a doctor when they come back, and to assign them to positions that will help them be more productive and bring change, serve as leaders, serve as professionals.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And that's the reason we call this the Raised Line podcast. As you recall, when the COVID pandemic began, everyone was talking about flattening the curve. How do we avoid overwhelming the healthcare system by keeping people physically distanced, wearing masks, taking the vaccine when it came out? The other equation is raising the line, which is how do we strengthen the healthcare system? Telehealth and cheaper access to drugs and more clinicians, more doctors, nurses, et cetera. Clearly, that's what any medical school does. It's what your school is doing, is trying to raise the line and train more people from the local communities, right? You recruit a lot of students from their local communities with the hopes that they go back contractually, but also that they want to go back because that's where they're from, they have family. What are some ideas you have for further strengthening the Rwandan, but also African healthcare system in terms of raising the line? There's only so many physicians we can train, even at a wonderful school like this, 60 a year at the capacity. What else do we need to be doing to improve the healthcare system?
Well, all my life I've been an educator and a service provider. So my comments will be restricted to just healthcare, education, and research. I think government should pay attention to what's going on in medical schools. quality is really needed. The quality of a provider that was envisioned 50 years ago is completely different from what the world needs for tomorrow. It's completely different. The world needs not just doctors who can serve as medical directors, leaders of health centers, doctors who can think, who can write articles, understand articles, who can serve as deans of schools, who know how to collaborate with politicians, with journalists, with policymakers, doctors who influence ministries in policy, who can support the ministry, doctors who can manage projects, who can raise money. Such competencies needed today. That's what COVID has shown us. None of us were prepared to handle such a thing. And that's why I think the world paid a huge price. Millions of people died. And there is no guarantee another COVID is not coming in 10 years. The solution is to be prepared. So I think Africa should invest better on its schools, nursing schools, medical schools. Faculty should be trained better, should be supported to provide better education, better assessment, better selection criteria. And the trainees should also be given opportunities to acquire better competencies. MD, MBA, MD, MPH was considered a luxury 10 years ago. No, it's now mandatory. It's now mandatory. Africa should look at situations of providing such trainings for the trainees. There is a lot of brain drain. A lot of trainees leave the continent. I doubt if it's mainly for salary reasons only, for benefits only. It's because of opportunities. So educational opportunities in residency, specialty, subspecialty, fellowships should be made available. And better things should be put in place to retain them here. Retention is not just salary. Several other things come into action. So Africa needs to learn how to retain its own people. And Africa needs to use its own people. There are amazingly brilliant, well-trained people in Africa who are just relegated to healthcare, to a hospital. These people should be utilized better, should be listened to, should be consulted when policies are considered or implemented. The last thing is quality. We should really believe in quality. Quality is not cheap. It has costs to it. Expense might not automatically translate to quality, but every quality has a cost attached to it. We cannot pretend or insist we need quality care and refuse to invest in it. I don't think that works. It has failed the past 50, 60 years. It will continue to fail.
Yeah. It's as I think Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So, one question we like to ask, I mean, you're speaking our language. We're an education company at Osmosis. We love filling in knowledge gaps. If you could, I guess this is a two-part question. What could we be doing better to help, your mission at UGHE in improving the number of quantity, but also the quality of training for healthcare professionals here in Rwanda and in Africa and globally? And number two, if you could snap your fingers and teach any audience, whether it's patients, medical students, physicians, nurses, some course, something about that we could develop a course on, what would it be and why?
Well, I think the key word is access. These young boys and girls are really smart. You give them something, they latch into it. They know what they're doing. It's just that many of them do not have access. Our students are lucky. They have access to Osmosis and other digital resources. They make the best use out of it. Sometimes I wish there are more than 50 medical schools in the region. How many of them have access to these splendid resources? So if there is any way medical schools in Africa could get access to such a beautiful resource, that would make a huge difference, especially for medical schools where the number of faculty is very low, access to live teaching is reduced, funding is not so much in these medical schools. I think that would make a huge difference. So I think the key would be access. Yeah. How can we to rephrase your question, how can we make Osmosis different or better? I wish, I'm sure you'll do it sometime soon, we could also concentrate on the minor attachments in medicine, like ENT, dentistry, radiology, dermatology. Just like what you're doing for surgery, medicine, OBGYN and others, if we can create resources to address these courses. If I could also add some courses around medical ethics and law and health professions education, I think those would really be helpful.
Yeah.
Because these are probably the most neglected components of healthcare education.
Definitely. And yeah, as we discussed yesterday, we're excited to, we have some like content we're packaging into those, but then producing more content on those fields as well. Because that's where the long tail is, but that's where a lot of need is as well. That's helpful. What advice would you give to our audience you advise all these students here on campus. What advice do you give them that maybe you could transfer to our audience about meeting the challenges of this moment in medicine and approaching their careers in medical education or medicine?
Well, I think not just them, all of us should be prepared. We kind of know where the world is heading into. We shouldn't be surprised when that happens. It's obviously clear. We've seen COVID 2 years ago. It's coming sometime. I don't think we should make that mistake. Climate change, we're seeing it coming. Physicians need to be prepared. The young should be prepared. The direction of healthcare is towards AI, digital health, innovations, e-learning. Today's medical student cannot hide from this fact. When I was trained as a medical school, in a medical student, even in surgery, laparoscopy was a luxury. And if you mention just the word laparoscopy during your exams, you'd pass, because you know laparoscopy. Not anymore. Laparoscopy is a day-to-day practice, even in Africa now. So the innovations of today, medical students, healthcare, today's students should be very much aware of. You should be prepared for tomorrow. The last would be, we can't do this alone. The world is so intertwined, it's so interdependent, we're so independent on one another, we just can't do it alone. Medical desert somewhere means a medical desert everywhere. So we just can't do it alone. So today's youth, medical students, should learn how to partner, how to develop partnerships with global north and south, south-south, north-north. That I think should be seriously considered.
And your students certainly have an appetite for it. I've seen it. As I mentioned yesterday, I met with about 40 of them in the first year class, and I was impressed both with how they want to collaborate, and obviously your faculty, many of them come from other institutions for visiting fellowships, 1 week, 2 week, 3 week lectures, but also have come from other countries to come lecture and teach. The other thing on digital health and AI, and it's one reason we have the podcast and feature guests talking about where the puck is headed, what is the practice of medicine going to be like, not today, but in 2 years and 5 years and 10 years. And I was really happy to hear when I asked the students about if any of them had explored the generative AI, the artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT. About a third of them already had, and it's been 2 months since they came out. So I'm really glad to see that, and your faculty too, about a third that I asked, and I'm sure that'll increase over the next few months.
Yeah, well, that's more headache for us, the faculty. ChatGPT is not going to make our life easy, but that's life. These are innovations we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Everybody has to understand what it means, understand the challenges, and be prepared.
I think it could. I mean, it's certainly, this is one thing I was brainstorming with your students and faculty. I think there are ways that it could make the jobs of both easier. So we'll hopefully lean towards the positive on that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It's just that we can't hide from it. You cannot say, oh, it doesn't involve me. Exactly. It's just a matter of time.
Exactly.
It will.
Yeah. We specifically talked about like 6 years ago when I came to last return to Africa. As you know, I was born in Namibia. I returned to Namibia 6 years ago after 25 years of not having been back. The internet was not great. Once you leave the University of Namibia, Windhoek campus, University of Namibia campus in Windhoek, it just wasn't fast enough to even play Osmosis videos on a phone. But now it's much faster because our coverage has improved dramatically. And you were mentioning that even on the trip from Kigali to Butaro, on a dirt road, 2.5, 3 hours, you have plenty good internet to watch Osmosis videos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's the trend of the technology.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And today's trainees need to be prepared, not to just be part of it, but to lead it eventually.
Yeah.
To be part of innovation, to innovate things. At the end of the day, we are talking about access to healthcare and quality healthcare.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, so my last question for you is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like our audience to leave with?
Not so much, except to thank you very much for thinking about creating Osmosis. Our students enjoy it a lot, they learn a lot. The faculty use it very well. It has been such a huge resource for us. And Osmosis and companies like that who provide e-learning access to medical students. I think that should be highly appreciated, and thank you very much for your partnership.
Thank you, really appreciate it, and thank you for being such a generous host and coming on the podcast. And with that, I'd like to thank our audience for joining us for this episode of Raise the Line. Remember to do your part to flatten the curve and raise the line, since we're all in this together. Thank you again, Dr. Abebe.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching this preview of Raise the Line. To hear the full interview, check out all of our podcasts and subscribe to the series. Please go to osmosis.org/Raise the Line podcast, or listen wherever you get your podcasts.